Okay, so this room filled with people here. All right, let's just get started with a review. Okay, so al tigzal dal ki dalhu. So this is continuing yesterday's pair of psukim here. So al tigzal dal ki dalhu. Do not steal or don't rob the poor because he is poor. Dal tadake ani bashar, and do not oppress or crush the poor person at the gate. Ki Hashem yariv rivam v'kava es kovehem nafesh, because Hashem will fight their fight, or judge their case or support their cause. V'kava es kovehem nafesh, and will steal. He will rob their robbers of life. Right. Okay, fine. So this is part of deliberate ambiguity here. So our questions were, what is added by the qualification of because he is poor? This is the main question, by the way, is it identifying the motive of why you would rob him? Or is it identifying a reason why you shouldn't rob him? So in other words, is it saying you might think that you can rob him and get away with it because he's poor, but don't? Or is it saying you might just rob him in general, but don't because he's poor, right? So that's two ways to learn it. Not necessarily mutually exclusive in the idea, but it seems to be in terms of the audience and the scenario. Speaking of which, what is scenario is this talking about? And then included in that are the details, like what is the difference between ani and dal? If there is a difference, what's the meaning of crush? What is the deal with the shiur, the gate? Is that a public place, a judgment place, or an elder council place, or something else? 3, why limit this to gazela as opposed to other forms of theft? I'm actually going to put that in terms of the scenario, even though it's not exactly the scenario. It's not exactly. Yeah, it's part of the scenario. Okay. What reason is Pasuk Chav Gimel giving beyond the classic Mishlei reasons? Right. We know you shouldn't steal from people. So what does it have to? Why does it have to invoke Hashem? Taking up their cause, and what does that mean? What exactly is Hashem going to do? 4. What is? I guess. Hold on. I'll combine those questions too, right? What do we make of the strange expression that God is going to rob someone of their soul? It sounds like it's ascribing some sort of a crime to God. We didn't ask whose soul is being robbed, right? I'll add that here. So whose soul is being robbed? The poor person's by the robber, or the robbers by Hashem? Right, that's the ambiguity there. And then who is the audience? Okay, so review what we did yesterday. I'm not going to review all the possibilities because I want to bring those up again. But the review of the explanation. Oh, actually, hold on, should we read the Yona first? Yeah, let's read the Yona first because I want to get more out of the Yona, and I think it'll help to see what my idea got out of the Yona, and then what needs to be explained more. Okay, so Yona said, al tigzal dal ki dalhu mitachhu dal, because he is poor, and you are not afraid that he's going to take back the object from your hand, right? So you go up, you steal the guy's bucket of money, and you don't worry that the poor person himself is going to grab it back. The al tadake ani bashar, don't crush the poor person in the gate. Inyan bashar makom sharav miskabim sham, it's a public place. There, it's that you not only is the poor person not going to reclaim it himself, but because he's poor, then even if there are other people, they're not going to do anything, like in my Honolulu Waikiki example. Okay, so then Rבינו gives 3 reasons or 3 explanations for this other part, right? Ki Hashem yariv rivam. Is that where we're at? I think so, right? Because Hashem will fight their fight. Since there's no one who's going to save them, then Hashem will fight their cause. We don't know what that means. Okay, so I missed this yesterday. God will take the soul of the thief who stole money from them. But then he says the reason why is ki ye'anish al hadal mishpat maves bidei shmaim af bishal ye'anish al shar bnei adam zulasi mamun ki hagoza min ani kenotas nafsho. So robbing from a normal person is taking their money, but robbing from the ani is like killing him. And since it's like you're killing him, that's why God gets involved. Okay, in other words, God will not kill you for theft, but he will kill you for killing someone. And how do we know that, by the way? We didn't talk about this. How do we know that God kills people who kill people? No, he didn't kill Cain.
I mean, he said he's gonna die.
Yeah. He said, well, he didn't say he was going to die.
He said he was gonna die for 7 generations, or am I?
Oh, yeah. After 7 generations. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a more halachic source.
Okay.
So it's an open pasuk in the Sheva Mitzvos Bnei Noach, which is for us also. This is in chapter 9 in Bereishis when he's going over the Sheva Mitzvos Bnei Noach. Obviously, not all of them are stated in Torah B'Tzav, but this one is. In 9:5. So this is such a hard pasuk to translate. Oh, but we have Nima Novetsky's translation. And indeed, your blood, which is your soul, I will seek out. This is Hashem talking. From every animal, I will seek it. And from every man, from each man of his brother, I will seek out the soul of man. Shofek dam ha'adam ba'adam damo yishafech ki b'tzelem elokim asa as adam. One who spills the blood of man, by man his blood shall be spilled, for in the image of God he made man. Yeah, so that's getting this idea that if you do a, if you do shvichus damim and there's no court to apprehend you, so then God will take care of it. Okay, whatever that means, but that is an open pasuk. Okay, fine. So that's what Rambam Yona's first idea is. Then second idea is he says Vashenis ki ha'ish hefer yira v'amar naval believe ein elokim. This guy who steals from the poor is lacking in Yiras Hashem, and he quotes the pasuk. The naval says in his heart there is no God. And since this guy is not afraid of people in terms of coming to help the poor, then he's not afraid of God. And he believes in his soul, he imagines that there's no law and no judge. That's why the Chazal say that the ganav is punished more than the gazlan, because the ganav is afraid of people, which is why he doesn't rob openly, but he's not afraid of God, which is why he does it in secret. Bashlishis, and the third reason is ki yodea hagozo la'ani ki ein ene ha'ani nosuos bilti el Hashem, that the robber knows that the ani only looks in hope to Hashem. V'chi Hashem yariv rivo achar she'ein dan dino. That's very, very vague here, and that Hashem will fight his fight since he she'ein dan dino, because since no one will judge his case. Yeah, so. My idea, I think, mostly was focusing on the second of Rabbeinu Yona's thing, that this guy thinks he could get away with it because no one's going to help the poor. And what this allows him to do, so he's not afraid of a practical, he's not afraid of his crime getting thwarted, right? And he's not afraid of anyone coming to justice. And he oppresses this guy because he basically identifies him as like completely other, completely subhuman, completely like this guy doesn't matter. And this guy who the pasuk is talking to would never, quote unquote, steal from someone who is not poor. He just says like, oh, I can get away with it here, or like, it doesn't matter this guy. But what's going to happen is that's a quantitative, he thinks it's a qualitative distinction, but it's really a quantitative distinction, because how much you identify with different people could be dependent on very, very small incremental things. So this is going to embolden him to keep on pushing the envelope in terms of his acts of theft or his acts of injustice, to the point where he will eventually mess with the wrong person, and then the people will retaliate against him. And this is Hashem taking up his judgment, because Hashem is the one who creates the laws of the psyche in him and in other people. And it's built into nature, so to speak, that this has to happen, that a person who engages in this kind of crime will eventually get his own soul taken. He'll get his life taken because he'll go too far. So that was what I said yesterday. Okay, so there were other approaches, yeah.
I think what Colin and I were saying had a slightly different nuance.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it was focusing on the fact that these are things that you're doing like visibly. Like,
yeah.
You're visibly oppressing the poor.
Yeah.
Oppressing the poor.
Right.
And that there's a certain response that people have to that.
Yeah.
That makes people want to almost to take up the fight of the poor person. Whereas if you do more like subtle things, like let's say where there's types of theft that don't trigger this, but it's this like brazen theft from the poor,
mm-hmm.
that really like can like really like trigger people, like people's like response of like, you know, wanting to like rob you back.
Yeah.
To like,
right. So yesterday, my problem with that was I asked for examples, and then you gave one resonant example, but I want to see if we can get a better category, because the example you gave is when people find out that some like, employer is like abusing the, stealing from the workers or whatever, and then people like want to take him down, So this seems to be, I mean, especially if we're talking about gazela, like, in other words, doesn't the pasuk itself go against what you're saying? That people don't come to the help of the poor?
well, it's not the poor are necessarily giving money back. It's that the guy ends up getting robbed from.
Right, but in other words, isn't the pasuk saying, according to Rביnu Yona at least, that like the reason why this guy steals from the poor is because he knows people are going to watch him and not do anything. And now you're saying that they are going to do stuff. That's why I was trying to make it. I think that's what motivated me to make it in the future, because the guy is going to escalate in his crimes and get to the point where people will take him. That gets out of that problem.
So I guess I'd say it's maybe there's a distinction between if the people watching know the guy or not.
Yeah.
Like, I think if people see someone that they know robbing from the poor, then I think that they might do something. Versus if they see a random guy on the street, steal a poor person's back.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not convinced that like if people who would not be okay robbing from the poor see their friend doing that, that they wouldn't try to stop him.
Right, but the pasuk doesn't seem limited to that case, where the person is robbing. I think that it feels like positing something like a limitation in the case that I don't see evidence for. Yeah.
Well, at some point I do have a different approach.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's right. Your approach from yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And also, just before I start, I don't have a precise like a key Hashem, what I want to define as Hashem being here. I don't have that. So
okay.
And also, there's one other thing that also, I have a possible alternative reading based on a question that you can ask on this.
Okay.
So with that, so I would learn as I'll think about Kidalhu as being, this is something that, so Dal being particular like a lowly person, that this is someone that people dislike, and there isn't what to think of. This is like a great target. Like I'm going to openly gazal, like I'm going to openly attack this guy because people don't like him.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's also like a great opportunity. Like this is a guy that people already dislike. This is a great opportunity to like show my strength. I could just like go ahead and like beat up this guy that people don't like.
Yeah.
And I think with that, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go do this, go do that, right? And I think this is then saying that even with then a person who people already dislike, and so there's like, oh, this guy's got a target on his back. Like people will be cheering when I go and that this is not going to work well for him. And then with that key Hashem Rambam, the comment from Nafesh.
Yeah.
So either if you're going to want to learn that as Hashem, or maybe just general things as a whole, that even if this is a dislike guy, for you to go about and like viciously go and attack someone, even in a dislike guy, that's going to come back and you're going to get hit for that.
Okay. So one question, which I think is an answerable question, is that works out very nice for Dal, but what about the second half of the first pasuk?
Okay. So that was the in case that question gets asked.
Okay.
I think this is then if you were to want to take it like an escalating to, if this guy now has this, he just opened himself up to acting viciously toward other people.
Yeah.
And as you're saying, there's not like a good, once you start acting viciously, emotions are not going to like, oh, this guy's really disliked and this guy's just regular ani. So then he's just going to start crushing other ani, and even not dalim, but ani and out in public areas also.
All right. I hear that answer. The way I would answer the question that I just asked on you is is that a person can have a target on their back for two reasons, either because of their own, because of who that person is, or because of the class that he belongs to. I think people do relate to, like, let's say, for example, like in certain circles in America, then like people are very like anti-immigrant, and like if they're an immigrant, they don't even care about who the person is. It's just like that class of person, like, yeah, they deserve like this type of abuse, So you could make a distinction and say that both of those are the same idea, where you're targeting them because of who they are, but who they are personally or who they are like class wise. And then so then you're I know you knowledge from the beginning that you don't know what it means that Hashem is going to get them back. So here's another question, by the way, that I'm going to layer on top of all the other mafarshim. In order to get the idea of the pasuk, do we need to know what it means that Hashem will get them back or not? Like, I was bothered by that question enough to incorporate an answer into my idea. I'm open to it. Like, a lot of the mafarshim don't explain how this is going to happen. So yeah, you could just say that they're just assuming some sort of hashgacha or whatever. But like, it would be, in other words, it would be nice if we could explain this idea in a way where it doesn't really matter how Hashem is going to do it, Yeah. I mean, I like your idea though of the kidalhu. Yeah.
Could I just ask also?
Yeah.
Your general understanding when you have Hashem and Mishlei, how broad are you willing to take that outside of being actual God itself, and like how willing are you to take that just like general laws of nature, or like because this is an inclination, this is what's going to want.
Right. Well, I mean, the Meiri that I rely on a lot for this, and this is not the only Meiri, but this is the first time I saw it in Mishlei. Let's go to our Acts of Hashem in Mishlei article. The Meiri says on the pasuk, Hashem will not starve the soul of the righteous, but the destructiveness of the wicked, the destructiveness of the wicked will batter him. And so the Meiri learns. So when you first read that pasuk, it sounds like Hashem won't let a tzaddik starve, and he'll like intervene in order to like make sure he gets his food. And the Meiri says, I'm just going to read this here. The Meiri, it's really annoying, like that. Never mind. The Meiri takes a different approach. He interprets this pasuk in an entirely naturalistic manner. According to the Meiri, the subject of the pasuk is the difference between the eating habits of tzaddikim and rashaim. He explains that the tzaddik eats in moderation based on his physical and psychological needs. Consequently, his chomer, his material body and psyche, will be more receptive to the development of his surah, his intellect. In contrast, the rasha eats in quantities which are either excessive or insufficient. This leads to a physical and psychological imbalance, which in turn has a detrimental effect not only on his intellectual development, but on his capacity for psychological satisfaction. So the Meiri says, so the question is, what does it mean Hashem will not starve the soul of the tzaddik? So the Meiri says, quote, this matter is ascribed to Hashem, for all things that come about through nature are ascribed to him. Blessed is he. It is as if the pasuk said the tzaddik will not be in a state of starvation, and the rasha will be the opposite and will never be satisfied. As it is stated, the belly of the wicked will lack. So, and that's what I draw from here, that according to the Meiri, any effect which is brought about by the laws of nature can be described as being brought about by Hashem. So that's very broad, to the point where the Meiri almost takes Hashem out of the pasuk when he says it's as if the pasuk said the tzaddik will not be in a state of starvation. And why don't you have to mention Hashem? Well, I mean, sorry, because it's talking about the design of the body, and Hashem, of course, designed the body this way. And so the answer is extremely broadly. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, could you then, if you were to say that, like what pasuk, what that would then really be trying to hit at?
Yeah.
This is a guy who starts off with allowing vicious tendencies toward people who are socially acceptable to attack, and then that's just going to, once vicious tendency starts, then it's just going to keep going out without having a cap on it. And then from that, then either through just what happens when you get into more and more like gang types of vicious circles, or just even if you don't start like joining gangs and all that, but just even in general, just people start seeing you as that vicious person that then so is that, and then more justice, this time won't be like a more justice type of way. If other people just start seeing you, then like more justice type of way, they're like, well, we got to get this guy.
Right. So that's similar to the approach I was taking, right? It's just through the viciousness rather than the taking advantage of someone who can't defend themselves. Yeah, that works. I'm wondering if you can say that, and I didn't see anyone who said this, but like, so nefesh could be life, right? But it could also be like your soul. And I wonder if like if it's referring to the harm that the person is doing to themselves by giving into these tendencies, whether it's your idea or my idea, and that is that that's the real punishment, right? I mean, the real onesh is the way that you're corrupting your own soul from this, and the reason why he has to say that is not every act of theft, can you say is going to corrupt your soul fundamentally. Like, obviously there's an imperfection there, but I think this works out better for mine, because mine is, I feel like the foundation of yours also is that once you make that break of not treating this other person as a fellow Tzelem Elokim, so then you're really corrupting your soul,
I think with other things, actually, you're doing it more because you're saying, because you're defining the person by certain like qualities, either his class or personality qualities, that you're saying, because of these, he's not human. Okay,
so let me reframe this then. So I think it depends on what you consider more of a corruption of the soul. Is it the fact that you're viewing this person as not human, or is it the fact that you're lacking Yiras Hashem? Because my approach, inspired by the Rambam Yona, was really more about the lacking Yiras Hashem, and then the not viewing this person as a human being is like what just what allows you to like bypass the guilt. But really, it's the lack of Yiras Hashem. The ignoring of the lawfulness in nature. Yeah, interesting. Okay, you want to take a completely new approach? Okay, so the Meiri's derech nistar. Okay, so he actually what?
Straight to derech nistar?
Yeah, straight. Yeah, the derech nigle. We can read. Let's read it, but I don't think he. I didn't get much out of it that we don't already have from before. So in the derech nigle, he says, bottom right, I'll take blah blah blah. Okay. So he's defining what kava means. It means to rob or to take something by force. Yeah, like that. The people are kove mi bame kavanucha hayikba adam elokim. Okay. V'lashon Talmud kaba'an planya. Fine. The hisir al gazelas hadal bifrat liyaid haflagas haonesh ala b'kvias nafsho vashuhu gazel gamkein chayav. So he says the reason why it specifies the poor person is it's promising extreme punishment for him of the taking of the soul of the robber, because when you steal from the poor person, you're taking his life. So I think that's what Yona's first idea was. Okay, but now next page, the nistar, and he's going to dole this out in two doses. Derech nistar nefar shehu al echad mishnei hakochos. This is being explained about one of the two faculties. Okay, now footnote here, guy says haruchani v'hachomri, the spiritual, quote unquote. So that's the intellect, and then the chomri is the physical. Al eze shitirte, whichever one you want. Okay. Ki roi laseis lechol echad chuko, because you should give each one its due. Uva gazelos hachok tikba hanefesh, and when you steal something when you rob something of what it is due, that's what chok is here. Like that's like when it says in Eishes Chayil, I can never quote. It's funny, if it feels like Tefilah, then I can't quote it like out of context. And since I guess this is in that category because it's Eishes Chayil, it's like this is chok. So she gets up in the middle of the night and she gives food to her household and the allotted portion to her maidens. So the Meiri is saying, if you rob anything of its chok, then you're taking its life. Okay, so hold on for 1 second. Footnote guy says, look later on in 28. And I don't want to read the pasuk 28. I just want to read the Meiri in 28. Okay, I don't want to prejudice us. So if you go to 20, or you don't even have to look, I can save you the temptation. Meiri on 28. Oh, you did. Okay. Says like this. Derech nistar remish lo l'mayit chok echa mishnei hakochos. This is saying you should not deprive the allotted portion to any of your two faculties. Aval shitin l'chol echad chuko kafi haroylo. Give each portion of yourself the portion that is fit for it. Pam l'seichel, sometimes to the seichel, b'limud haTorah v'hamusar v'chachma. Okay, that's what the seichel wants, right? Learning and musar and chachma. Upam l'chomer, and sometimes to the physical, b'achilu u'shasiya v'shena, of eating and drinking and sleep. Kafi hatzorach v'hachreach, all according to the need and what is necessary. Okay, so according to the Meiri, so let's read this into the pasuk again. Okay, al tigzal dal ki dal hu al tadake ani bashar. Don't rob the poor because he is poor, and don't oppress the poor person in the gate. So that's talking about either of the two faculties of the soul. Either don't rob your intellect of what is due to it, or don't rob your psyche and body of what is due to it. Ki Hashem yariv rivam, because Hashem will fight their battle and steal and take the soul of the robber. So let's flesh it out. So what's the shot of calling these two things on ani, and what is it saying that God will rob the soul?
I think so as far as anything, I think it's like it's easy in a certain sense to rob, these faculties of like what they need. I feel like the robbing your intellectual faculties, I think like there's lots of there's a pretty question like how you can do that.
Yeah.
In terms of like robbing your like physical faculties, person could just not take care of themselves.
Right. Okay. So that's answering a different question, which is more fundamental, which is what does it mean to rob? I'm asking why is the psyche and why are the intellect and the psyche both compared to poor people? Right. Because he's saying you could learn that this is about either one. And spoiler alert, we're going to read someone else in a little while who says that who takes a similarly derech nistar approach, but says that the whole first pasuk is about the intellect. Yeah, Chaim? You see what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that point about calling them both a doll. That it's a strange thing to call the
psyche.
Yeah. Like that's like always compared to like the rich king and
right, exactly. Yeah,
like that.
And I think that's
strange.
what the other derech nistar approach is going to be doing. Is he's saying, the intellect is the poor young chacham, facing against the rich powerful king. But Meiri's not taking that approach.
Yeah, that's where I thought it was going to go. As soon as he said like,
I know.
So I was like, oh yeah, okay. So
and we will go there in a little while.
Like the goof, okay.
Yeah, we will go there in a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's poor in that it needs to it needs to be taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah. In order to live a proper life.
Okay, that's exactly what I was thinking also, that both faculties that you have are dependent on you to take care of them and to provide them with stuff. They can't care for themselves, right? And the you in this context is who? Is that not the intellect?
You as a whole.
So I think you as a whole is the nefesh. So I think the you is the choosing part of you. Okay, is your bechira. And what it's saying is you have because again, there's different ways to model the human being, right? But in this model, you've got this poor intellect, Tzelem Elokim, that just all he wants is chachma and musar and limud. And then you've got this poor, and he's totally dependent on you, the chooser, to give that to him. And then you have the psyche that's utterly, it can't get what it wants. You need to make choices to give it what it wants. And if you don't give each one its proper chok, so then your soul is taken, and your soul is the integrated organism as a whole, like the whole, right? So the practical application is the thing that interests me about this, okay? Because I do feel like it is a common mistake that people don't strike the balance, right? And more often than not, you're going to err on the side of giving the psyche more than it actually needs and then depriving the intellect, right? But you can easily make the other mistake as well. And I think the way the type of person who makes the other mistake, who's prone to the other mistake of giving the psyche the intellect too much and depriving the psyche and the body you can class this in different things. Perfectionists, type A personalities, whatever, where people will try to take on too much in terms of their perfection in the Torah and their mitzvos, and shortchange their psyche or their body. So like again, most recent example for me was really in the first year teaching yeshiva, of just constantly being involved in teaching and not taking care of my psyche and body, and then suffering as a result of that. But I think that there's there's other cases, like I know that there is a extreme temptation during the Aseret Tshuva to do tshuva and to do extra mitzvos and to give extra tzedakah. And that's all good unless you are depriving your psyche and your body of what it needs in order for your entire self to function, in which case you're harming your intellect. In other words, you can't do it to the point where you're harming your intellect, and again, striking that balance is hard. And the Rambam in his model of Deos, yeah.
Oh, I was thinking this.
Okay, the Rambam in his model of Deos says that of the two extremes, you're really, your goal is to be in the middle, but the chassid is the one who inclines on one side or the other. And the Rambam says there's always going to be one side that's easier to slip into than the other. So let's say like in gluttony or asceticism, gluttony is way easier to give into because people's bodies are hardwired to love food, right? Or let's say like in spending money or saving money, it's going to be easier to err into the side of like spending money, for most people. So in this case, I would say like, yeah, you have to get the balance, but you have to be aware it's easier to fall into the side of like giving into the psyche. So if you're going to err on the side of caution, definitely err on the side of like giving your intellect more than your psyche. But I gotta, so I was talking with, I was thinking about selichos. Okay. And one of the major problems with selichos is that on the one hand, selichos are very good, but on the other hand, you end up being extremely tired and it affects your functioning during the rest of your tshuva, and it can be counterproductive. Some people, like one of the reasons why I many years, and again, I say I love selichos, but like what would happen every year without fail is I would get sick. I would physically get sick and I would knock me out for days, and like it was bad for me. But here's the thing, you might make a mistake on that and say, well, you need to give your body more sleep, so like you shouldn't get up for selichos, But here's the mistake. The mistake is there's another option other than not getting up for selichos, which is you could do that also, but
I was the same thing.
Yeah, go to sleep earlier. And people don't want to do that. And why don't they want to do that? Because their psyche tells them to stay up, and I was thinking about this, and it's partially that person's fault, but part of it is the messed up society we're in. One of the most valuable body need experiences that I've had, which I think you were all too young to appreciate this, is during Hurricane Sandy, when we didn't, well, I don't know about you, you weren't affected by it. We didn't have power, for 2 weeks. And so for the first days, actually we didn't have power for 2 weeks. I didn't have power like in the place where I was staying for like a week. And what would happen is, this was in late October, early November, I can't remember now, but it would get dark early. And what would happen is it would get dark early and we'd have to use candlelight for everything. And you would start to get tired at like 7 p.m. and fall asleep, And I know there's been a lot of articles written about this, but like we live in this messed up society right now where there's artificial light on all the time and you end up staying up. For me, it's extreme to stay up past 10, but I know a lot of you have worse habits and you stay up until the wee hours of the morning. And then you get up for davening or selichos, or you don't get up for davening or selichos, and then you suffer. And you're like, well, what can I do? Well, yeah, you can actually like take, give your body what it needs in ways that, so the reason why I'm giving the selichos example is because I think there are people who feel like the reason why I can't strike the balance is because it's impossible. Either I have to compromise and get up later and like miss selichos and davening, or like no, like don't let your psyche blind you to the fact that there are other ways. Your psyche don't let your psyche make that decision for you of, well, it's either all or nothing, like you have to actually make evaluate and say, are there better plans for what I can do? And again, like it's like, for some people, it's a matter of like, not using their phone or computer and forcing themselves to shut it off and put it away earlier. Like there are ways around this, and so I'm not saying I'm getting this from the Meiri, but I'm trying to address an objection that psychologically you'll have to implementing what the Meiri is saying. and say that, like, that's part of the problem. The part of the problem is the psyche can't take care of itself. That's like a baby trying to take care of itself. Babies don't know when to put themselves to sleep, and they don't know what to feed themselves. And if you leave them to their own devices, like kids won't go to bed, and like they won't eat what they need. And so you have to like care for it. And that's where your choice comes in. So that's the little spiel on that. Yeah. You want to say something earlier that you wanted to interject?
Yeah, I thought you were saying something totally different thing from Hilfos.
Yeah.
But I want to underline this point.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Maybe we could just sit at this point for a second.
I think that's good. Yeah. And again, this is something when you're taking up, tshuva and setting up habits for the upcoming, days, month, year, however, whatever scale you're doing it on. Like, you have to take this into account of the I feel like we this was the idea we said. Oh, you know what we could do? Hold on. Yeah, let's go back to the pasuk we did, the other pasuk about robbing the poor, and then plug this derech nistar into that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I think that we'll find something interesting here. See, low system resources may affect your ability to function. Okay, hold on. So in one of the ideas that we had here, so this was one who extorts the poor to increase for himself, and one who gives to a rich person is only for loss. So I think you could plug this in as well, right? That it's talking about extorting the poor psyche to increase for yourself in the intellect, or to give to the rich. You could plug each one into each one. So let's just read the pshat idea and then plug in the derech nistar. The subject of this pasuk is not extorting the poor or giving to the rich, but rather a mistake people are prone to making in their cost-benefit analyses. In this case, the guy who extorts the poor thinks to himself, I'll take advantage of the poor since no one will come to their defense, and I'll accumulate wealth. But he fails to consider how many instances of extortion he'll need to perpetuate to make a decent profit, and how much risk he'll be taking on by engaging in such frequent criminality. Likewise, the guy who gives to the rich thinks to himself, when this guy receives this benefit from me, I'll increase my standing in his eyes, and he'll be indebted to me and will do my bidding. But he fails to consider how much or how frequently he'll have to give to even garner the rich person's attention, and how much debt he'll incur in the process. Both cost-benefit miscalculations will set him on a path to ruin, which he failed to anticipate because he only focused on the pros and cons of the particular move without giving any thought to the consequences of the long-term commitments he would have to make in order to achieve his goals. And if he did consider these consequences, he'd see that these plans are a bad investment, which will result in a net loss. So you can make the same mistake when you're talking about your psyche and your intellect and giving them their due. And I'll give you a personal example. When I assume that after we get back from Sukkot, there's going to be the plan to reinstate Mishmar, right? And I heard that was a success. So part of me, when I heard that that they did the first Mishmar, it was said like, oh, I should really just like muster up the whatever you muster up to like do the Mishmar, because it'll be really fun. I'll gain a lot. It'll be good for the guys, and I'll do that and I'll make that into a thing. Well, here's the thing. Okay. I already get bad sleeps on Friday night. Okay. And that carries over into nap, which carries over into bad sleeps on Saturday, so it's already a bad weekend in terms of my normal sleeping patterns, right? I could muster up the whatever to do Mishmar on Thursday nights. And I could do it once, maybe twice. But I realized if I make this into a thing, it's just going to add a day to how much I wreck my body, which is going to affect the entire week, So as much as I would enjoy it, so I was only looking at the particular move that I would have to make and not looking at the investment over time, and then I realized that like, no, it's not a good decision. So yeah. Okay. Yes.
So I was thinking of another, it's in Hilfos Day, it's the beginning of the third paragraph.
Yeah.
Where he's talking about about health. And
Yeah.
the whole paragraph is talking about medical things, because he says that taking care of your health is midarkin Hashem.
Yeah.
Because
right.
Yeah.
Because you can't serve Hashem and be involved in learning if you're sick or if your body is not getting what it needs. Yeah. That's a good point.
So it's like a good, I think that person who's going on this type of path can easily go too far to the extreme.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that is much more in line with actually no, it's not more line. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of this other derech nistar approach I wanted to show you, which is the Sefer Chukah, which is R Yosef Kimchi, who's the Radak's father. So he says, and we're only going to read his explanation of the first pasuk, 22. He says, this is what you were saying, Chaim. This is talking about, I don't know exactly, whose mind is in chachma. He's talking, but you'll see what he means. The intellect is poor in the world of the body, because it's ruled by the yetzer. That's the mashal of the king. She'ozrav rabim v'chayalav ugedudav b'chol es torfim, because the ones who help the Yetzer Hara are many, and its armies and marauders at all time will strike and be predatorial. Who's calling me? Okay, I can't take this now. V'isma'et hasechel me'ein somtim, and the intellect will diminish without supporters. Alkin himshel kadal, and himshel kadal. That's why he's compared to a dal. Right? So that's the standard mashal, right? By the way, we know the Meiri does nigla and nistar. I don't know the Sefer Chukah well enough to know why he just jumps to a metaphorical interpretation. I think usually he does pshat. So what about the pasuk do you think is making him take l'chatchila a metaphorical approach?
Well, this pasuk.
This pasuk, yeah. If you had to guess, I mean, this is just total speculation on our part.
The next one God.
You could connect it to that. We'll read what he says in case we do get something that I didn't get when I was looking at it this morning. Where is he? Is it on? Oh, at the bottom. He will steal the soul of those who rob. Because it is for it will be a cause to destroy them. He's just explaining the lashon. Yeah. I mean, I think it might just be because of that obvious first question. Don't rob from the poor because he is poor. Like, I know there are other ways to interpret it, but like, it sounds like, who by nature is poor. So the intellect in the body, yeah. So he's saying, so this is a more standard message. He's saying like, don't rob the intellect, but can we get like a nuanced idea from here? And we can't fall into the approach of the Meiri, because that Meiri's approach is beautiful because it really does apply to both the psyche and the intellect, but this is saying like, the Yetzer Hara already has a dominion, and it's warning you not to rob the intellect. For some reason, this is harder than the Meiri for me, even though the mashal is easier.
Right, you can't just say half of the Meiri, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah, right. Yeah. Because here, this is interesting also, maybe the audience is different, because here you could argue he's talking to the Yetzer Hara, whereas not talking to in Meiri, he's talking to the choosing part of you.
Meaning telling him that
like the Yetzer Hara is the thing that is going to be, I mean, he's depicting the Yetzer Hara as the thing that is always trying to victimize the poor person, right? So, it's
But there doesn't seem to be any.
Well, okay, here's an approach. Okay, so we know from the whole derech of Mishlei in general that the psyche thinks it can get the best of all worlds by ignoring the intellect, but really it can't. Really, the intellect will save it from disaster and will help it to get its what it wants in a greater measure. So whenever the psyche is robbing the intellect, it's really robbing itself. It's really like ultimately depriving itself, because it's in its best interest to facilitate the welfare of the intellect, and then the intellect can then better provide for the psyche. But the reason why you need this is because the psyche feels threatened by the intellect, because it thinks that it's going to harm it, and it thinks, and also realizes it's going to need to diminish its own pleasures, and it doesn't like that, because that's immediate. It's immediate. Yeah.
I like that. Like, that's what I wanted to say, like something like that.
Yeah.
It almost seems like the Chukah is like not saying much in terms of like a takeaway. Or so are you like extrapolating that from what he's saying?
I'm extrapolating that from what he's saying, because he doesn't explain the pshot of the second half, but or he doesn't explain the idea of the second half. But yeah, I'm extrapolating. Okay.
But I guess he's saying like, oh, don't do this is a bad thing. He's saying like, this is the poor person and this is the rich, the robber.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so let's just summarize our approaches. We had David's approach, which mechanistically is similar to mine, but the emphasis is on the giving into this viciousness because this person is already disliked or he's in a class that's disliked. And in the same way that I said, once that's just a quantitative thing, and like you could get carried away and then get the consequences, whatever those are. Then there's the Meiri who says this is talking about depriving either poor part of you, which is a dependence, which is the faculty, which is dependent on your choice, from depriving of what it needs. And in order to, and if you do that, your nefesh is going to suffer, which is your the person as a whole. And then the Sefer Chukah is saying that it's talking about caring for the intellect, and the Yetzer Hara's temptation to deprive it of stuff, but really that's not ultimately going to come back to bite the Yetzer Hara because it's not going to get what it needs, and the intellect is going to be a better custodian of it. Okay, good, and go to sleep earlier. Yeah. Okay.
That's something that I started
Yeah.
when selichos started. I forgot about that when you asked me what are things that you can do.
Yeah.